Today we want to carry on with a little bit more of the technical stuff we've been asked to put forward as to what we do shooting wise, and what I'd like to go through is our targets and what we're using for long range shooting, and we might even touch on some of the spotting stuff that Sam does and what we're set up like there. To start off with, well, we've got our target. This is our normal target setup for the long range stuff, for the extreme long range stuff. And in difference, or I should say in different, what I see from most people shooting at extreme long range is, well, quite a bit. Over here on the log we've got what we use for our closer range stuff. This is for the, we really shoot these up to the sort of around the 1500 yards. That's a 12-inch plate. It's 10 mil or 3/8 of an inch for the Imperial mob of what we call Bisley 500. It's the same as AR 500, so it's essentially it's an armour steel that essentially is very strong, deal with impacts, and really that can take hits at 100 yards with the high power stuff without any problems, and really is great for shooting and not having to replace your target, so it doesn't wear it out. Obviously it's a little bit small. Once you get out to 2,000 yards you're starting to get a little bit small in the way of the target to hit to. But there's another feature that we're looking at. I'll just move up in targets. This is essentially 6 mil or 1/4 inch steel that we use, in the same sort of steel that we normally use for the 1500 yards, 1200 to sort of 1500 yards. Use this for more of the rapid fire stuff, trying to get it on the plate, and once again don't want to damage the steel. All this stuff is great, and you can obviously use these sorts of things out to the 3000 yards if you want to shoot there. The negative, I would say, and what we actually do different to that, is we use over here, you'll see, if you come and have a close look at this, this is a reused target, but essentially this is just 1/8 of an inch steel, so a 3 mil plate, and it's just mild steel, this plate. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is, out of the extreme long range, your bullet's gone subsonic, so you're now doing below 1,000 feet per second, and out of that range, somewhere, depending on the projectile, depending on the bullet, the weight of the bullet and all the rest of it, is that once you've slowed down to below 1,000 feet per second and coming into the 800 feet per second, you'll find that bullets won't pass through mild steel. It's going to impact it. We're obviously just using a target round or a tactical round, so it's essentially it's a hybrid or a VLD, or essentially a proper hollow point boat tail jacketed bullet, but it's not trying to pass through metal. They will pass straight through this easily up to 1,000 yards, and even some of them up to 1,500 yards it's still going to punch straight through. But once you're into subsonic with the round, we'll find that it won't, and that gives us two features. One is, rather than a small impact or a light coloured impact that you'll see on using the AR 500 or the Bisley 500 side of things, it'll actually punch into it and put a proper dent. I haven't got to see, but you can see actually here the remnants of where I've painted over, of the size of what it actually, when it bends the steel, it pops the paint off. I'll attach to the footage some of what it actually looks like when the round impacts, but it actually will punch the steel back up to 1/2 inch, and because it's bending the steel, it pops the paint off, which then, rather than giving you a small impact of 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch round, you'll have a proper big inch to even 2 inch, 1.5 inch normally, roughly, in the way of the diameter of it, of the black mild steel that you'll see very clearly. But the other feature that a lot of people may not realise is that what you're used to looking at with an impact in a supersonic round, so shooting to 1,000 yards or 1,200 yards with a 300 Win Mag sort of thing, is you see the bullet splash, and that's what you actually are seeing. You'll see the ground go dusty around it where the bullet splashed. In a subsonic round you don't see bullet splash, the bullet will just bounce off. So if you've just got a heavy hunk of steel, which is what I quite commonly see, they'll have 1/2 inch or even inch steel, so it's super great. It's great steel for taking an impact at 500 yards and it doesn't damage anything, and you can see a bullet splash and it works really well. In extreme long range, we don't have the advantage of bullet splash. We don't have, in some cases, half the vision that you've got at that sort of range, and we want something else to be able to see. So the nice big dot helps, but what helps even more is, as you'll see, this is reasonably lightweight. It is 1/8 inch steel, and when you whack it, everything wobbles around. So one of the big keys, even in a high mirage situation, we'll get where Sam and I sometimes, but Sam particularly being the spotter, will actually see the whole frame move, see this thing wibble around, which is a good indication of a hit. Obviously you can hit your steel frame, which can cause a little bit of the same, but with you do the combination of the bend of the steel, and you know, out at, as you've probably seen in our videos, out at 2 miles, we'll still get a nice bend in the steel. And obviously it's in relevance to what you're shooting, but this works really well. This is the target that we used for a 223 right out to 1800 yards, but also works nicely for a 223 at 1200 yards where you'll see it properly. Whereas you'll start to struggle to see a 223 hit on a hard steel. There's very little way of bullet splash, it's slowed down enough, it makes it a lot harder to see. So I will touch on essentially the frame design. I think I've been through it once before, but once again, and part of our design is about making things so they're going to flex a little bit when they hit. We also want it to be reusable, and the last factor is a lot of the stuff we want to be able to cart our stuff out there. So there's places where we will walk 300 yards, 400 yards, 500 yards out to our target, walk there and back. This stuff all wraps up into a neat little handful. These are nice and easy to carry. I actually laser cut my targets out, so I've got a carry handle. That's just a simple thing. If you're getting steel cut up, it's pretty cheap to get done and get it cut with a handle. I use pretty lightweight chains. Yes, if you shoot and you hit them at enough times, you're going to cause that problem in the way of you're going to break chains and things. It's not something we really find as a major problem. I make this solid part of this these frames out of solid stainless steel. It'll basically, even at 1,000 yards, you hit these and it'll just ricochet the bullet off. These are hollow to make them a little lighter, and yes, you do have to replace the leg occasionally. You're not really, if you're shooting with a bit of accuracy, then you're not really hitting that sort of stuff a lot. And obviously we carry a simple flag on the side here. All this stuff is done to be lightweight, easy to set up in, but the basic concept and the piece I really wanted to point out was it is just light steel. We're not using armor plate. This is just 1/8 inch steel, and it's designed to actually bend when it takes the impact from a subsonic round to give you a lot better picture, so you can actually see easy and see where your hits are. Anyway, we'll go up to the other end now and we'll have a little bit of the look at the spotting gear and what we do on the spotting side of things, but that's a little look at our target systems. Okay, one of the other bits we've obviously been through with the target, are about to go with the spotting scope, but one of the bits I would go through is your weather conditions, what we're trying to shoot in. I've been asked a few times now, what's our off season for long range shooting? Well, this is our off season. It's winter. It's why we're doing these technical videos, obviously. But one of the features of extreme shooting, or at least learning to do it, and getting to where you get your data and make everything make sense, is being able to see your hits. Now, a good spotter certainly helps. Your targets being able to move, that certainly helps, but the biggest feature is your weather conditions and your ground conditions. The weather that I'm actually talking about, what we need weather-wise, is a low mirage, a low to moderate wind. You know, you can't, I shouldn't say you can't, but it's very difficult to shoot at over 2,000 yards with more than 10 or 15 miles an hour wind. We've done it, but it's difficult, so you really want moderate wind. One thing a lot of people wouldn't realise maybe is that in some cases what appears to be no wind is harder to read and harder to shoot in accurately than a moderate wind, because it's very rare to have actually no wind involved over a long distance, and what will tend to happen in the 5 to 8 mile an hour sort of winds, you'll tend to find it becomes more consistent, but that's all your environment and your conditions. One of the very, very important points is having enough dirt area, or enough, whether it's rock or whatever it is you're shooting onto, that's going to give you feedback. So, you know, dirt like this, if you look down the ground now, this is moist, and there is no, you'll, you know, at 1,000 yards you'll see that dirt come up and you'll see the impact. But you go to 2,000 yards, this sort of dirt, you might see it where it's clear dirt, you might see it actually hit an impact, but you'll probably find that 15 out of 20 shots you won't see, if you see that number. So we need conditions that are going to blow up some dust so you can actually see it, so you get yourself on your target. You have to keep in mind that in the 2,000 yards and onwards, one MOA, just one MOA. So if you're one MOA off your target, you're talking about 20 inches of distance. At 3,000 yards, you're talking about 30 inches of actual distance. So unless you can see really clearly, you can't find those. And of course, that's talking in a group range. You've got wind conditions that you can't read in the middle of it. You'll quite easily be needing to adjust by 10 MOA. So all of a sudden, you're talking 30 to 50 yards over to the side, and that's where your dirt conditions are super important to be able to see your hits. Obviously light, low mirage, very important. We tend to shoot very early morning in the summertime. We've got moderate winds down there, or low to moderate winds down there. We've got low mirage before the sun's heated up the ground too much, and before there's too much of a temperature difference in the air, which is what actually causes the mirage. All those conditions actually help, and there's obviously different times of day you'll find it, but that's when we do our shooting. So this time of year, you really don't get it. We really don't get, you get decent low mirage, you get quite clear sky at this time of year, but having somewhere you can actually see your impacts, very tricky, very awkward. The bullets will disappear in, they're coming in at, you know, depending on the caliber, they're coming in between sort of 800 and, or probably 1,000 and 500 feet per second, so the bullet's slowed down, there's a lot less impact in the ground. Don't get me wrong, they're still very deadly, they have a lot of power, a lot of these bullets still out there, but you've lost a lot of your sonic shock, a lot of the actual impact of when it's actually hitting is a lot slower, so essentially the dirt doesn't get thrown around as much, and you're looking over a long distance. So essentially now we'll go over to Sam on a spotting scope, and we'll go through the spotting scope side of things. But yeah, that's a little bit of the weather conditions that are required. Okay, well, we're back over here at the spotting scope. We'll get Sam to go through what she does on it. I'll just go through the basics of it. This is a Yukon scope that we've got. We went through various levels of the normal spotting scopes and hunting scopes and things like that. We ended up with wanting more power. This does have up to 100 zoom or power zoom on it. It is a mirror scope, and there's a non-reticle scope. So we have no there's no reticle. We're not doing it in a military form. We're doing it where Sam will take the size of the target, and that's what she's using to very quickly work out where the target, where the impact was, and then give me that information, and I'm doing the math. So I'm not after an MOA reading from Sam by any means. I'm after exactly where it hit, so then I can see it and work it out. That helps me through the fact that I'll be doing, sometimes I'll be using holdover to hit my target, sometimes I'll be dialing to hit my target. But all that's in my head, and our way of doing things is essentially that I'm doing the maths. Sam's job is to tell me what she sees and exactly, and all the process. I'll let her go through the details of that, but that's the basics of our form of spotting. I'll let you go, Sam.
Okay, so just to go through some of the things to do on the spotting side of things. As Martin mentioned, the Yukon spotting scope works well for us. It allows me to get down onto the target in as close or as far as you need to be. Sometimes that might be first finding the shot to allow distance around the target, and then to come in a lot closer to zoom in on it. I sit down in a comfortable position, which for me works well on this bag, and also gives me as close to the spotter as possible, located to his position, to give the best information, but also lets me sit up and around and keep an eye on things and what's going on. Some of the things that need to look at or take into account as a spotter is time of flight. So when I'm looking through the scope and the shot is fired, I immediately start to count so that I know of the distance and the calibre we're using of when it's going to be hitting or when to expect the hit to take. It also takes a little bit of anxiousness out of it if you've got a long shot with, over a long distance of knowing when it's going to be hitting, so you can be looking at the right spot. One of the other things is when we're looking at or trying to see where things are, the whole conditions, weather conditions, it sometimes makes it quite difficult. So if you've got a mirage, you don't always want to be focused right in close, you need to come out a bit. Wind conditions, it's important to let the shooter know if the wind changes, what direction, and if it's higher or lower wind. Things like that are things to take into account. When it comes to targets and reference as to where the shot lands, what we use is target whatever that may be. So if it's a 24-inch plate, then you can say that it is one target left of centre. So that we'll know, and we'll work that out as we go along as to what target that is. But that can be the same as for a Coke can or a gate post, for instance. So it's what you're looking at as to the reference of what the target is. Okay, so just to go over with what my job is as a spotter is to let the shooter, let Mark know exactly where I see the shot hit. So that's also giving some information of perhaps in the weather conditions, if the wind changes, etc. But keep in mind, I don't want to be too much or too many words or getting too much into his head. He's got the job to do. So if the wind does change, and then sometimes if it changes back quickly, by the time the shot's fired, it's null and void. So sometimes it's good to just hold your breath, but to give the information as you see it. Okay, well, that's showing some of what we do, and Mark will just help me wrap up on that one.
Okay, well, I hope that was of some worth to someone out there. That's basically what Sam does in her spotting job. I would say our way of doing it is simply our way of doing it. This is, as I said before, I'm not trying to suggest there's a right way or wrong way. This is what we've done in doing it by ourselves over the years. And it works very well for us. I would have to take my hat off to Sam in what she does in the spotting job. There is times where there definitely is, it's very hard to do some of the extreme stuff, and for anyone who wants to go out there and do it and think they're going to get all the right or nearly right equipment and go out and do it easy, listen, it's just not like that. Some of this stuff can be very frustrating. You honestly can go through 3 boxes of ammo trying to find some shots when you don't have enough information trying to learn it all. But having a good spotter with decent equipment so they can see reasonably, and being able to work together as a team is a very important feature to getting to where you can start to make sense of this really long stuff. But keep in mind the conditions you're shooting in, dry ground that makes nice dust, low mirage so you can actually see properly. There are definitely days when it's better to pack up and go home, go and do something else than to try and fight it. Everyone will have to learn that by themselves, but I'll honestly tell you a good team is really important, because it's impossible to get done. This is not a guy who can shoot well and gets the target hit like that, and it's not just a spotter that can see well that gets the target hit. The two have to be good at what they do, but they also have to work together as a team. Really important feature. Anyway, hope that helps some people, and thanks for checking us out.